I think there were definitely periods when the kind of unrelenting anti-Christian environment in Utrecht that I experienced at the university, it had this driptych effect on my confidence in the gospel. And it was probably less the science itself than this kind of idea that I hadn't quite articulated, which was that the university way of looking at things rationally is the only way of achieving reliable knowledge. The people that do this, the great men and women of the university, mainly men, don't believe in God. Therefore, if you believe in God, something is wrong with you. And I think that was something I had to get used to. And I was quite lucky. There was one Christian professor in my university that I knew of in physics who was a brilliant lecturer. And I remember when second year I went to his lectures, and they were fantastic lectures on quantum mechanics. And then I went to his home and I found out he was a real Christian. And I thought, oh, a smart person can be a Christian. And it sounds really naive, but that had a big impact on me, because I thought, yeah, I can think about these things more rationally. Probably the third time I really had to have a rethink was when I was a PhD student. And I probably had, until then, had I didn't think too much about how science and religion interacted. I was quite happy to compartmentalize them a little bit. And I probably thought of science as a nice thing to do, a fun thing to do. I loved it. But I also, from a Christian perspective, saw it as a means to an end. So maybe this is a way of getting a job that I could be a missionary with. I could go be a missionary in a closed country as a scientist. Or maybe this is a way I could reach my colleagues for Christ. And I think in university I began reading more widely, particularly Reformed theologians, who pointed out to me that being a Christian means that your work is important, and that something about my work was valuable to God intrinsically. I didn't have to see my research as being a means to an end, but for God it could be an end in itself, and it could be a form of worship, and it could be perhaps if God called me to science, then that would be the way I would serve God, was by being the best possible scientist that I could be. And so that was perhaps the more recent development in my PhD studies that I came through. And interestingly, those were American writers that helped me, people like Mark Noll and others, but they were building largely on Dutch Reformed thinkers who I somehow had not seen when I was in Holland. Some of those things the prophet's never honored in his own country. So I had Americans to point out to me my own Dutch heritage. So that was quite interesting.